Welcome back to the Dialog Choices podcast. We're doing a Q&A episode this week, and by this week I mean an hour after last episode, but actually, but it'll come out a week later or something because we're batch recording with Toaster.
You say that as if they would know.
Behind the scenes, we're crazy. What if something crazy happens in like the next 3 days, and they're like, why aren't they talking about this? Why don't they understand? And like, it's like, well, this was recorded on December 15th, and that's why.
Because we don't say that after. Can't you say that after the fact of the crisis happening, not like before? You're like preempting a crisis. So you got 3 days to commit a crime, guys.
Like, why aren't they talking
Otherwise,
about
this podcast
the moon, the Majora's
topical.
Mask moon hurtling towards the Earth? Why isn't that a topic of the podcast?
Wait, today is Christmas.
Because we're doing Q&A. We will talk about that on the regular podcast. Wait your fucking turn, Moon. It's not about you today, all right? It's about Q&A questions from audience members.
I'm here.
This will probably come out on Christmas Eve or Christmas Eve.
Oh, that's the Eve. Right.
So
yeah, Eve.
First question.
First
question time.
First question
Toaster,
I see is, what do you think? Do you regret being here, Toaster? That's definitely a real question. It says there.
Yeah.
Wait, do I regret being here?
Yeah.
Always.
Next
question.
Welcome back to the Unlistenable podcast.
Our unlistenable podcast. I enjoyed the last episode because I got to talk to Colonel about one of my favorite video games of all time for an hour, while the other two insane hamsters in this hamster wheel of a life stayed silent the whole time.
But we were working.
You just said a few things.
They were. Yeah.
But this time, who knows? The oncoming train is rushing towards me. We'll see. We'll see if I regret this by the end.
The first question I see is, what do you think about ray tracing being required in upcoming AAA games, by Stutzen4115? And I didn't know that was true, so I Googled it to even tell what they mean.
Indiana Jones has it as a requirement. It is a problem, actually.
No, it isn't.
It's
the ray tracing isn't. It's not RTX, so you can still play it on any graphics card, right? So it's just like
RTX
back in the day we
ray
had
tracing.
No, that's the other way.
RTX is NVIDIA's ray tracing, solution.
You can play.
First things first. Games are not required to have ray tracing. I do think that certain console games are they're being pushed for it in the SDKs and for
asker would lie to me.
Lie to you.
I don't understand the question. I don't think I've played a game with ray tracing before.
Yeah, ray tracing will never.
Ray tracing, old school ray tracing, is a normal thing that many games have. It's just not advertised like the next Second Coming or whatever.
Well. What you're thinking of and what people mean by ray tracing is two different things. People are talking about real time ray or path tracing when they are talking about this. I think these people also just don't understand. Whoever's asking this is probably conflating ray tracing and upscaling, because they are big features and those are things that people complain about right now.
Right?
They are super different concepts, but upscaling, as in, I think they mean DLSS being required or FSR being required for games to run at quote unquote native resolutions and run at decent performance. This is a hot topic. I think if that is what they're trying to talk about, I think it's fine. Technology has always advanced in these ways, where a major performance gain feature is seen by many at the start as a niche feature that shouldn't be adopted. It shouldn't be the standard. Literally way back when fucking pixel shaders became a thing, people were I need shader cache. I need shader support in order to use 100%. This game. That's unfair. It's locking out. We had perfectly good graphics before this, and now you're telling me you need to upgrade my card. And now it's literally a feature we take for granted because it just makes games better and makes them run better.
Yeah, the vast majority of rendering performance is taken up by shaders.
Yeah, exactly.
I guess I don't understand the question. Yeah, because it sounds like what do you think of the idea that graphics go bigger and then you
change
buy
over
bigger
time
computer every 6 years like you always have?
I think
it's the same as it always has been, I guess.
Yeah, I took it more of being a requirement. You can't turn off ray tracing, and I think I can understand that complaint of I think any kind of visual choice should be optional. So long as it doesn't impede the ability of the game. Obviously you can't turn off textures duh.
Yeah.
But like the idea that ray tracing is mandated into a game is bad. I don't want that. I actively always turn off ray tracing because I don't fucking want it. But I don't, like I don't care that it's there. I don't give a shit that it's in the game.
Here's a question. Do you just not want ray tracing? Do you not want it because of the performance impact? Or do you not want it because for some reason you don't like ray tracing?
Both. I notice that it gives me a performance impact, but I also have literally never in my life played a game with ray tracing turned on and go, yeah, I can see why they do this. Like I've never been enamored by like right now I'm at the point in my life where I want every game to look like a 360 game. I'm fucking done. I don't give a shit if your game looks hyper realistic. I don't care if I can see the bump maps on your fucking models. I don't give a shit. I want your game to be fun. And that's the problem that every game that is like busting out the seams with the highest graphic fidelity is not. They're not fun. And it's like so I turn it off. I don't give a shit. I don't want that.
For me,
it's not.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No, it's just, again, it doesn't matter to me. It's not like a do or die. It's just as long as I can turn it off, I'm fine. I don't care if it's there, but I don't. If someone like gun to my head, you must play a game in ray tracing. No.
I think global illumination is such a crucial difference, though.
It makes such a crazy visual difference.
Yeah. But there's old games with amazing global illumination effects they're pre-baked or whatever. There's ways around it, but it's just that
RTGI is just one of those things that is a genuine
it's so
technological advancement, right? Yeah, and it is. Yeah. Like this is people are gonna say like, no, it doesn't make a difference. I'm not saying that baked lighting can't be good. Baked lighting is very important. It is one of the tools in a tool set that you should use as part of art direction. But like literally visually speaking, RTGI is objectively incredible and everything basically benefits from it. The big question right now is whether or not the performance impact is worth it. Right. And like, that's a big question. However, when it comes to ray tracing being a requirement, I really can't think of any games that require ray tracing to be on. I do know right now that there is no way to turn off ray tracing in the new Indiana Jones game.
Yes,
it always
correct.
It always
so is the entire
renders
controversy and it runs, just about this one game I'll never play, and that's the whole topic.
And it runs like shit. I fucking hate
does
it?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah,
I saw the benchmarks.
Yeah, I've heard that the new Indiana Jones game actually performs like it's one of the most well optimized video games of like all time.
I have a I have a 3080 Ti. Mm-hmm. I play the game at medium.
3080.
What do you mean? A 3080 Ti is more than enough it needs.
No, you have 16 gigabytes. You got it. Sorry.
And also, just let me preface this.
12.
Indiana Jones doesn't look that great. It's not like Last of Us level quality here. This is just a regular ass looking game. It does not need...
crazy. That game looks incredible.
It looks
for the most part.
Well, if you disable the RTX, maybe it looks like a normal game.
Maybe, but like I'm running this game on medium settings. Mm-hmm. And it's still like anytime I go into a place that has more than fucking 10 people in it, the game runs at 15 frames. I don't want to calculate what the lighting is for these people I don't fucking care about. Stop doing that. Don't do that.
I never anticipated this being such a heated topic.
Digital Foundry put out a video.
I was going to read the question out and be like, I don't know, man. I play like one new AAA game a year. I don't care. Yeah. I'm sure it's fine. And then dump
Digital Foundry put out a video about Indiana Jones being like, like this game is so well optimized that like changing the graphic settings basically doesn't affect performance, not in a bad way though.
No, that's
like that is so not true.
You know what the problem is?
Not true.
I was wrong. The 3080 Ti does not have 16 gigabytes of VRAM.
Yeah, the issue is going to be VRAM.
That's definitely
that's 100% the issue.
You're running with your NVIDIA badge.
So again,
you need to remove the NVIDIA badge to have more VRAM. That's
so again, I don't give a shit if it's there. Just let me turn it off. I don't fucking want it.
But the thing is that the ray tracing isn't the issue. That's not the reason.
It is very VRAM intensive, though. Ray tracing
it is very VRAM intensive. But like, there's other like if you look at I just posted a link in our podcast channel. If you watch this, it will tell you what you need to do in order to get it. And ray tracing is not the number one performance impact for lower VRAM usage in this particular game. So this is a game thing. I can. There's a whole bunch of settings to change, but the big thing though is that, like, again, just to get back to it, like, I don't necessarily think having ray tracing is a bad thing. It just harkens back to the old conversation of like, oh, I have to have pixel shaders. This fucking happened with Alan Wake 2, which is like one of the greatest looking video games of all time visually.
It has always happened.
It has mesh shader. You need mesh shaders, which means you need a 30 series card or better to play it. Period. Yeah. Just as an example, I think there are AMD cards that can play it. Obviously, I just don't know the numbering. The numbering is insane.
700 or 700.
Yeah.
Well, then,
but you
can I get like can you port the Xbox? Like, I played it on the Xbox Series X because I thought, like, okay, maybe I just have a shit computer. And it runs just fine on the Xbox. And I know my computer's stronger than the fucking Xbox.
Okay,
so whatever the settings are...
The Xbox has more VRAM.
Well, actually, it has unified VRAM, but the big thing with the Xbox version is that it's running on lower than low settings on PC.
Then give me that. Yeah. Give me those settings. That's all I
think
want.
You need to enable them in an ini file, maybe.
My gosh,
something like that. Which that's a different conversation. That's a question of, should games allow you to have more options? Which is always like, you should be able to configure. I should be able to make the game run at 240p if I want to.
Video game look like Simcopter.
Sure. And so it just circles back to the argument. I think every game should give you the option to turn off any visual part that you don't want. I don't like ray tracing being mandatory. I respect the idea.
I should be able to turn off fucking colors in a video game if I want to.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
I will. There's no limit for me there. It's like, I do not like the idea of being like, gun to my head, you must use this feature, because I don't want to use it. But like, you can put it in your game.
That is increased development time, though. For that,
absolutely.
Yeah. Especially,
that's fine.
And it's for a specific platform as well. It's not, because these are multi-platform games, that you're going to tell the publisher or whoever is responsible for this sort of decisions that you need to invest a certain amount of time or a certain amount of money for this one feature on PC. And it's particularly, it's the kind of feature, like, these companies actually, they don't mind that their PC version doesn't run that well sometimes, because they just get to sell another copy for the PC player who happens to have an Xbox, and they get to sell 2 copies of the same game, because, and it doesn't necessarily happen all the time, but I can see companies thinking like that.
Yeah. One last question on this topic is just, Andrew, again, I'm speaking purely theoretically. You buy an NVIDIA or an AMD 27,450 card, and you download Indiana Jones, click play, and it plays 120 frames per second, and ray tracing is on. Do you still go into the settings and turn off ray tracing, or do you not even think about it?
It kind of depends on how it looks. I turn off, like, a good example is I turn off bloom in a lot of games. I hate bloom.
Sure.
I don't want to be, if I start noticing something, like if I start noticing too much that, like, oh wow, I can really see the light reflections, I'll turn off reflections. It's a distraction. I don't give a shit. I don't want, because seriously, the focus for me is I want to play the game. I want to focus on the game, and I want to enjoy the game that I'm playing. And the visual stuff can sometimes be a distraction. It's like, okay, great, like, I'm trying to look through a wall, but like, God fucking, okay, I get it's bloomy. That's great.
It's like turning all the particle effects off in an MMO.
I see what you're saying. My question, the actual ulterior motive of the question is this a now problem, or is it a forever problem?
This is a forever problem. Yeah. Because this isn't like, I'm not witch hunting RTX or ray tracing. This is not a ray tracing witch hunt. It's just like, it's just a feature thing. It's just
it's a feature thing. I get it now. Because I do think that there are probably games that you could play where I could show you a screenshot of it without ray tracing, and then a screenshot with it with ray tracing, and you could possibly say, the ray tracing looks better. If this performed, better, this would be a better solution. I mean, you've done 3D graphics before. You understand the benefit of these things, right?
Again, I am not like anti ray tracing. I am not like, hey, stop putting it in games. Absolutely not. I think games look really great. It's just, the way that I want to play games
from a gameplay
perspective,
you want to have certain things turned on or off. Same reason why I turn off motion blur, right?
Yeah, I just consider like a level of accessibility in some level. Like it just makes it easier for me to play the game when things aren't. It's like motion blur, bloom. There are so many things. Indiana Jones comes with a film grain built into it. Fuck off, dude.
Those.
I turn that off immediately.
I have a very practical reason why I hate film grain in games. I love film grain. I love the way it looks. Fucking YouTube encoding is so evil.
Yeah. But that's the thing is like that's what I'm saying.
Immediately be like 3 times the size and recording, and then none of that should translate to YouTube quality.
And so that's my argument is that like I don't like forced features.
You want to clean,
Yes, I want to be able to set my features to be, and like I think Elden Ring had this problem with like the way that it cached shaders. It would like wipe them every time you turned off the game or something, or like updated the game, and it was so annoying.
That's why they had stutters.
Yes,
and rebuilding everything every time.
So again, I wish I could have just turned that off, or I wish I could have had a button that just pre-shaded, like pre-cached it when I got into the game. Well,
that's the benefit of fucking Steam OS is they built in a goddamn OS level solution to it to prevent fucking Elden Ring from stuttering. That's a legitimate thing that Valve did just for Elden Ring.
But that's what I'm saying is like there are features in games that I would like to have control over. But the feature that Elden Ring is doing by caching those shaders is good. Like it is good that it does that. It just did it a shit way, and I wish there was a way I could be a little bit more selective about that implementation. Just like again, film grain Indiana Jones. I don't want it, but I'm sure it's really fun if you like playing on the Xbox or whatever. It's like, oh, feels like an indie movie. I get that. That's totally fine. Just do not force me into it. Just don't force me into any feature.
That makes sense.
I think a big problem is oftentimes when these features exist, it's like when The Witcher 3 came out. It wasn't.
Is that what you're going to talk about?
Yeah. Oftentimes they perform so well on NVIDIA cards, really, but there are examples that are better, that perform better on AMD. Just doesn't happen.
You know what? You would be excited, Colonel. Indiana Jones has a hair slider. You can make the hair quality better.
But the thing is, the graphics card market is so pigeonholed by NVIDIA that they really they have a field day. They do whatever. They literally sold. I'm looking at the stats here. They literally sold in June 2021. So this is 3 years ago. It came out a $1,200 video card. That is the one that Andrew has. That has 12 gigabytes of VRAM. That is absurd. That's like. I think that was I don't know the problem why that is absurd
VRAM is so irritating right now.
You get to the point where it then stutters. Yeah, because it creeps up on you and you don't think, and then all of a sudden the new Indiana Jones stutters and it's weird and it's hard and it's not like it necessarily has to affect performance because you can lower the settings, but what about finding those settings? You need to watch YouTube. Like for a normal, what ends up happening for a normal user is they upgrade, and so instead of the graphics card lasting them 3 years, it lasts 2, which is my experience with the NVIDIA cards or whatever. But it's just I think these sorts of features are
still good.
These sorts of features are used as well for just creating more e-waste and forcing people to spend more money than they normally would.
I think that there's something to be said about objectively correct. The weird VRAM bottlenecks we're running into on cards right now is just like insane. Because so full disclosure, I have a 4090, which is a 24 gigabyte card. I also have a 4K display. So I play games at 4K on a 4090 while recording and VTubing at the same time. So like I have a very, very high VRAM usage most of the time. And like playing Silent Hill 2 Remake, that game looks amazing and it uses its VRAM well, but I was at 22 gigs of utilization most of the time. Literally, Andrew could not run the game on the same settings that I have because his card has literally half the VRAM that mine does, right? There is an issue there in that most of the resolutions that people play at now, because people buy what they think is the standard. And 4K, as much as we loathe to admit it, is a visual fidelity standard. It is what people are designing for, even if it is not the monitor size most people have. People need to really, really remember that like resolution is where you're going to buy your video card. Are you going to play at 1080p? Unless you want crazy high frame rates, you don't need to buy a 4090. You want to buy a card that like orients towards the resolution and the frame rate count that you're looking for. And currently, I mean, we live in a weird market where we now have Intel. Intel's new cards are fucking amazing. The Battle Mage cards are incredible value, even better than AMD right now for the price range that they're in.
They already, to be fair, they already were better than AMD before.
They were, but they were getting a little old. They were getting a little crusty.
They weren't as good as the new ones.
But they did less feature sets and less compatibility. But Battle Mage is great. Nvidia is in a weird position right now where they are occupying the extreme high end, but they also have the most features, and that's why they're cornering the market. Is because no one else is like competing with that feature set, which is becoming more and more important because people are playing at higher resolutions and they necessarily quote unquote should be for what they're targeting. There's a whole other conversation to have about that. I've had this conversation with Colonel a few times of like what exactly, like we're in between a rock and a hard place in the industry where features are outpacing adoption, which is like from a consumer level, but the industry is adopting those features before the consumers are, which is like a complicated cart before the horse type situation. But long story short, I think using ray tracing as an example here, ray tracing as a technology is very good, very beneficial, very great. Most things benefit from it. The question is whether or not it is feasible for developers to sustain development using ray trace toolkits, using engines that we currently have support for, using the tool sets and instruction sets that we currently have access to in the market. And it all just boils down to, I don't know. It all just boils down to whether or not we can have control over features. And right now, I think that the question is just a little bit loaded because most games don't require ray tracing. And the only games I can think of that like are on a development level mandating some kind of ray tracing support are like console games that are pushing it as their next big feature. And even then the PC ports always end up allowing you to turn them off, and they have, they have,
I was going to say, like on console, the graphics
performance versus quality modes.
Meaningless.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's just not, it's a different conversation entirely. So I don't really think it's a big deal.
Choices.
Yeah.
On some level,
the point where go ahead.
On some level, I just vaguely feel it's like if you're opting into playing AAA games, you're opting into being a part of the graphics arms race, and you're literally buying into the spectacle of the idea that graphics and scale and other features need to keep growing year on year, which means you're going to have to pay for them to do that. And if you don't want that, you can just play other video games because that's like that's the inherent like categorization happening when the moment you mention AAA games is that like, oh, it's the bleeding edge of video gaming, and that's what you're asking for.
The crazy thing about this though is that the thing that we think of as AAA is primarily designed for consoles, and they aren't pushing the boundaries of graphics, which is really interesting. There's a really interesting dichotomy there.
And I also say all this as somebody who plays all of their video games in like 1080p in medium, and I'm just like, just preemptively opting out of any struggles in the game. Like it'll be fine.
Yeah, and I mean that's my thing is like I'm fine with not only am I fine, I've lived this hellish life of having to chase the new, like I gotta buy a graphics card just like a phone every 2 years because otherwise I'll get phased out of being allowed to play games, and like I'm fine with that.
It's not like I'm going like, you've made your bed, now lay in it. It's more like, aren't you asking for this? Is more my question. Yeah,
and and so the thing for me, or at least personally, my big complaint is that I don't like. I'm fine with replacing a graphics card every couple of years. But it is going to come with like the expectation that for the cost now, I need it to be lasting. I need to ensure that one, it's going to be lasting more. It's going to be lasting long enough to wait until that period of time, the couple of years. Like my 3080 should last me until the 5 series comes out. That's just for sure.
My take on that is a little bit.
You don't think so? You don't think
different?
It should?
No, it's not that
be...
It's not that I don't think that things should last. It's that when I think of cost analysis, it is more important to me that I get value, like tangible improvement, than necessarily longevity. And what I mean by that is, obviously, if I buy a graphics card, I don't want to have to buy a new graphics card in 6 months or whatever, right? But, and I'm going to use this as an example, I had a 2080 previously, or 2080 Ti or something like that.
I
sent it
right
to Kyle
now on my computer.
I don't remember what it was, but I had one, right? That would not have supported the mesh shaders needed to play Alan Wake 2 at the settings that I played it at, right? I upgrade to a 4090. Yes, that's expensive. My graphics card costs $1,300.
Oh, you got it for cheap.
But yeah, I did. I got my there's
that's true. That is true.
The MSRP for the I actually think I spent a little bit less than $1,300. I think it was $1,250. But the you can get 4090s for significantly lower than MSRP if you look at brands and go to Micro Center and stuff. Not everyone can do that, but still, I went to Micro Center and got mine in person. But the thing with this is that, like, all right, I have a 2080 or 2080 Ti or something, I don't remember. Then I look at Alan Wake 2 and I look at Control, and I can play Control at amazing frame rates on my 2080 Ti, and it looks great. Played it in ultra wide, all the ray tracing up, played it on my CRT with all the ray tracing up. It was awesome. Looked amazing. I buy my 4090. Now I have access to the new forms of DLSS, new mesh shaders, much higher VRAM. Yeah, just new versions of DLSS come out all the time. You can upgrade the DLLs, make them higher quality.
No, I'm saying you with a 4090, you don't need it. You could just run native. Well,
yeah, there's still a huge benefit to using DLSS there for such little visual difference. But again, using all of these things, I then open Alan Wake 2, and now I can tangibly see all of the difference. I'm still running the game at like 120 frames per second or whatever frame rate I have it going at. For recording, I did it at 60, and it was fine. Locked 60 for basically the entire game. All the settings maxed. I walk into a room, there's beautiful lighting, there's reflections, all of the characters have fully rendered hair. I can see the pores on someone's face. The art direction is incredible. This is a tangible difference. It's not just that my games run fine and I'm not, and like I can now have this graphics card for 5 years and I'm getting my money's worth because it's going to last for 5 years and my games aren't going to slow down. I get the benefit of my games not slowing down, and look at all of these new tools I have to play with and all of these cool new things I have. That's what I look for in a graphics card. And is truly, if I were to buy a graphics card, and I'm not a crazy graphics person, I fucking played Blood Omen on my stream yesterday and I loved it, and it's a great game. That game came out in 1996. I play retro games all the time. I am not a graphics snob. What I think matters is like how a game looks and how it works for what it's trying to do, right? But when it comes to having and spending a lot of money on something, I think the difference here, and obviously there's some privilege involved in this. I have a well-paying job. I'm able to afford this. But when someone says, I just want this to look this way all the time, I want it to run this way all the time, and that's all I care about with the graphics card, that's surviving. That's moving with the times, but just keeping your head above water. I don't just want that. I want to see what advancements happen. I want to see what improvements, and I want to be able to play with the things that these developers are using, because in an example of something like ray tracing, when you have global illumination and can have, for example, true shadows and true occlusion, suddenly you have new tools to play with in design. Suddenly you're able to do more things. Using an old school example, when games were able to actually implement dynamic environmental sound in a game like Thief, the stealth genre was born. You couldn't really do what that game did without access to high quality sound cards or high quality sound drivers. without access to things like real-time rendering, a game like Half-Life could not exist. And people complained back then that the requirements to play those games were too high and that they just wanted, well, the Star Wing Commander was fine enough. We don't need real-time graphics. It's fine. I want to see those improvements because I want to see where games go. And as long as those improvements are tangible enough and meaningful enough and do make a difference, I'm willing to pay for it. It just, obviously there is a cost analysis to that. Am I willing to pay $7,000 for a single graphics card every 2 years? Fuck no.
Yeah, that's my thing. That's like that's
what's going to happen in 10 years.
I know it's going to happen next year.
Well,
like,
tariffs.
It's only going to be 2,500.
Yeah, we're going to be. I mean, graphics cards are going to be like $3 million by next year. Jesus.
But I think that there is a conversation to be had about, like, people ask me, should I buy a 4090? Probably not. It's probably overkill for what you guys do. But for what I do and what I get out of video games and the resources that I want to look into and use, super beneficial. It is my only choice, right? It is what totally. I need in order to do what I want to do. So that's how I see it.
There's never a reason to not improve. It's just you have to know what your level is. Like
your use case is, exactly.
Yeah, like what do you want out of this? And like for me, it's just I want to play a game, man. I'm just here to play a game, right? And so the frustration I have in mandatory settings being like, okay, well you're hindering the only thing that matters to me, which is that I can play a game. Like, so if that's going to be the way it is, then I would rather you not do that. But there is like some, I don't know, there is like some level of frustration because I do almost start feeling like I'm too old to even notice the differences sometimes, where people say stuff, like, yeah, like people can say a lot of buzzwords and I'm like, okay, sure, it has like DSLR, like DLSS and ray tracing and things. And then when I'm in the heat of it, when I'm in the moment of playing the game, I never find myself going, oh, okay, there it is. Like that, this is what it's about. Like, oh, wow, this is so incredible or impressive. It's just, I don't know. It's just that isn't the way that my brain does that. Like it just doesn't care enough to even notice those kind of visuals. So my main frustration is just I wish I could get a graphics card that was good enough to play games, and games didn't require me to have a graphics card that was strong enough to do all the features. Like,
stuff does stand out more when it's not working than when it does work overall. Like I'm so sick of that one fake reflection system where they show a blurry reflection of something else that has to be on the same screen.
Yeah.
And so as you move your camera around, you see the reflection disappearing and reappearing based on how much of the other part it's reflecting is still on your screen. And it's like, this is so distracting. I can see it coming in and out of existence actively, just playing the game casually when I'm not even trying to look at it. It's such a bad system. I hate
screen space reflections, and it's just a cheap way of doing reflections.
Yeah. That's
where ray tracing actually benefits.
It was always super ugly.
Yeah, ray tracing really does sort of fix that issue, and among other, like the bloom effect that happens, or is it bloom? I mean, there's ways to fix that without ray tracing, but particularly the sort of it's not on your screen. Guess what? It's not reflected. Screen, I think the issue for me, the biggest issue with ray tracing is the since we're raising issues with graphical, is the sort of bubbling effect that the ray tracing does, or at least when it's not very.
Yeah, you're talking about noise, ray tracing noise.
Yeah, the noise. Yeah. It just looks like everything is boiling. And it's just very distracting. And in Indiana Jones, that happens if you don't have ray reconstruction on. And I think it also happens in
Silent Hill 2 if you don't have the thing as well. Yeah, ray reconstruction is another technology. It has a huge performance impact, but eventually we'll get there.
Yeah. And the problem is it only exists because of another technology. Ray reconstruction wouldn't need to exist if we didn't have ray tracing in the first place. A problem fixing a problem that is fixing a problem. It's a big cascade of.
that's kind of just what new stuff does. Ray tracing.
Visual. I mean, this is a thing that even like the fucking film industry has spent years working on too, right? It's like figuring out how to denoise and figuring out how to reconstruct and do lighting properly. And
me and the boys all just remember playing Mass Effect and having to stare at the fucked up shadow under Dr. Chakwas' hair. For the entire game, to the point where it's like the most iconic visual of Mass Effect is how fucked up Chakwas' face shadow is. Seeing it pop in and out of existence like square by square constantly as her head moves, but also there's a halo of light going through the top of her hair that shows up on her forehead at the top, and you're like, who let this happen? Anyway, Jamie Junkrat asks, do you think the game industry is going to experience something similar to the video game crash of 1983, but in the modern era?
Yes. No? You don't think so?
Nope.
I think everything is going to fail twice. I think everything has to fail twice in order for it to reach
just like poetry.
Yeah.
So the thing is that the video game crash of the 80s was a very, very specific economic condition that happened when a very small market that was extremely localized fell. Video games
when I read
as
this
a
question,
industry,
I was like, I literally don't know what would prompt it.
Yeah, well, the thing is
that
people
economic
are
crash.
Steam exploding forever. That would crash.
But none of those things are actually that would not manifest the same way that the video game crash of the 80s did. And the reason is that the video game crash of the 80s happened because the primary supplier of video games, of like the developers, the industry, and the entire platforms that they were developing for changed fundamentally, and it wasn't big enough to offset the fact that the audience was the audience wasn't big enough to offset the fact that the change was so big that critical reception dropped, that there literally weren't enough people interested in buying these games or putting up with them or using the platforms. Because at the time, if you remember, the market was much more segmented as well with different kinds of computers. Like if people hate exclusives now, they would have fucking hated exclusives then, right? Different. Nowadays, this is like saying, will the film industry collapse? There is basically the reason why people are asking this is because there's so many layoffs in the industry and so many big IPs being bought up. So the collapse that people are talking about right now with this, and this is what I think you're talking about too, Andrew, is like, is there going to be a position where like a video game recession happens, or like a lot of these companies go bankrupt or whatever? Yes. But we will probably never again see a point in time where, for the most part, video games aren't being made, disappear from the market, and entire industries close. Because that's what happened.
The medium isn't at threat. Like another crash would not make the medium shake up. It's like, oh, video games may not be here anymore. It would be like, hey, do you remember those like 12 giant monolithic companies you remember? They died.
Yeah,
you're
because
like, oh god,
that has happened. Like even just in our generation, Midway doesn't exist anymore.
Sure,
fucking
Acclaim,
Sierra doesn't exist. Acclaim doesn't. Sierra. Atari doesn't exist anymore.
No, it does. Atari still exists.
Atari is a child brand now. It is not its own publisher anymore.
True.
Yeah, like all of these brands are very different. Very, very different. Than the landscape will obviously change, and there is a very high chance that there will be a crash of some kind in terms of like an economic recession. Yeah, but video games are not. Yeah, but video games as a whole are not going to undergo the literal, at least as far as we consider it, like in America, like people don't realize how genuinely industry shakingly, foundationally shakingly huge the video game crash of the 80s was, because there was literally, people thought video games were just not going to be a thing anymore. That is never going to happen.
Yeah, that's never going to happen. I meant more of the collapse, like the industry consolidating essentially, because it just like died. Like people, businesses just went belly up. Yeah,
the video games aren't going anywhere. Interesting could change, but like video games are too big. They are too global. There's too much going on with them as a as an industry for it to just fucking disappear overnight, like what happened in the 80s.
Especially because the majority of the industry is mobile gaming, and that's healthy as normal. Healthy as in a rotting pile.
Who knows? You know what? Actually, I shouldn't say that, because maybe they will stop existing. Maybe we'll find out that we can't keep making all these graphic cards anymore. We're like, well, that's it. 50,
we're
50,
out of
50.
sand. We can't crush more silicon.
We can't, and we can't get to space because everyone's too poor. You idiots bought all the PlayStation 7 Pros with the $1,500 CD drive, so we can't go to space anymore and get more sand. What a long question. Jesus Christ.
All right. Next question.
What a long question. You guys spent a half an hour on the first one. The second
That's
one
what I'm saying.
short.
Is like we keep hitting these long questions.
Do you prefer furry art with the character fully clothed, only top, only pants, or without clothes, safe for work only?
Wait, what?
I like art, and this is a bizarre way to characterize things to make sweeping claims about for some reason.
Porn is the only way to make art. If you're not making porn, then you're not making art.
Well, apparently it's all has to be safe for work. So apparently we're exclusively talking in the realm of safe for work. I'm just like, which
that's not art.
Are they just asking like what kind of art style we like? Do we like more... Like, is it the furry scale from 1 to 5 of more furry versus less furry?
Should your safe for work art of a character be fully clothed, or only have a top, or only have pants, or have no clothes? And I'm
do you like Donald Duck, or do you like that guy from Fortnite, whatever his name is?
Wendell.
I like.
Yeah. Do you like your werewolves wearing pants, or do you like them to have no pants?
I like naked.
I don't care. I like whatever looks best for the art that they're making.
Yeah, art exists for a reason, to evoke a particular emotion or response, or to express a particular idea. So
make an alt version with naked.
That doesn't need categorical claims about how the characters can be dressed.
I'm technically not a part of this because I don't really engage much in the community, but in my mind, like, all furries have no pants on. Like, all of them are Donald Ducking. Like, they have to be. Like, that's the
they don't?
Thing,
what are
right?
you talking about?
Pants are for people. Pants are for people only.
The furries
animals don't
people.
wear pants.
That's the entire point.
They're anthropomorphic animals, but they aren't people. Humans need pants. No one else needs pants.
People. That's
Andrew's just super tune pilled.
No,
super tune pilled. So tune ready. Yeah, no, anthro literally means people. That's the whole point, is that they're doing what people do. They talk and they wear clothes and stuff.
Yes, but they aren't people. I'm saying only humans get to wear clothes. Everyone else,
they are people. Humans and people are different words.
I'm going to choose to interpret this
only humans can wear clothes.
In good faith and not assume that this person is a shit stirrer. And I'm just going to say... I don't really care one way or another, but I do. I like, if I had to pick like a furry art style that I like the most, I like toon art a lot.
What's toon art?
Like toony styles, like Who Framed Roger Rabbit?
Oh, right.
Or Looney Tunes or Disney. Like I like very
even just
cartoonish
looking at Toaster's character
art
design alongside the personas of everybody else in our group. And it's like,
yeah,
he's a little toon boy.
Yeah. Toaster has a great persona. He does not wear pants. That's exactly what my mindset is. That's what it should be.
Well, for me, I like the big the juxtaposition of big round, not necessarily big, but round lines and curves right next to fur lines. So that interesting juxtaposition that adds character to even simple shapes, and thus the Nike is better. It's safe for work.
You just like when there's more fur available to see.
Yeah, because it adds character. It's just instead of just clothes.
Looking at the art I interact will show that I have just extremely diverse tastes and entertaining all of them at the same time all the time.
Yeah,
like
I mean that's
all
that's
over
like,
the place with furry art.
That's like someone asking anime about like what kind of eyes do you like? It's like, buddy, this is the fucking
blue one.
Like everything from indulgent large men to horny clothing to like moody fucking autumn twink pieces to just gore and horror and everything to tune. Like, who cares? It's all cool art. I love all the art.
Art is great. Keep making art. Don't get too wrapped up in it.
Red O Raven asked, how do you approach making your VN? Last episode. That was the whole last episode. Well, 2 episodes ago now. Watch that one. That's the one where I said I made a VN. And I talked about that. Would you give advice for people looking to make their first VN? I'll probably make a video essay type thingy on the video essay channel in the next like month or two. where I try to find better advice and address exactly that by actually talking to people in the industry, because I don't have much to offer. I just set out to do it, and so my advice is just do it, because I just did it. But also I fell backwards into a lot of advantages and surprise help from people, which made things a lot easier. But you can just do it. It's just art. There's low barrier to entry, but I don't have specific advice.
Yeah. I mean, it's
just do it is good advice.
Yeah, I was gonna say I think the advice of being able to see something to completion and following through with ideas and how to execute on them without just giving up and saying this sounds stupid and not bothering. Like, that's also important advice to know. Like, I think the biggest hurdle in making anything is always actually making a thing.
Yeah, because there's a fear of whenever you're any artistic expression, I feel there's always a fear of you. I want to, I have a passion for this thing that I want to see to fruition. I really want it to be good, so I want to get advice and hit the ground running, that sort of thing. And that's a good instinct, but the fear of it not turning out good isn't as bad as what happens, which is to many people, and it's fine, which is you giving up on the thing that you were passionate of because you find out, I don't like it actually. I think the result is bad, or maybe idea was dumb, and that's that happens a lot. But there's two sides to that, which is, on one hand, people who see games to fruition and people who see art to fruition also think that a lot of the time. They also see it to fruition, and at the end, they're like, I think it sucks, actually, but I still made it. And on the other side, the people who do give up and do something else, the process of getting there is also very rewarding. At least I've found that, and obviously not having made any game, but the process of starting something can be, and figuring out that it's bad can be very good, because it teaches you lessons. It's an outlet anyway. It gives you experience. And just do it. I
just make stuff. You can do it. It's easy.
I like that.
It's specifically not easy, but it's also easy. You could just start. That's the easy part.
And don't be afraid of failure, because failure is success.
So, I mean, all creative enterprises are about challenging yourself, essentially. So they're inherently not easy, and that's the point. Challenge yourself to do a thingy. That's it. God, this person asked like 75 questions.
That's always the case.
A lot of them are pretty.
Yeah, and I'm just like scanning through it. So I'm not going to sit here and read this one person's questions for the rest of the episode.
I think the one I took from that list was like favorite console, because I think that's
the Nintendo 64.
My console. My console is my favorite console, because I can't play yours.
The Nintendo 64 is just like seared into my brain as just being so fucking weird and neat.
Yeah, there's a lot of games. There's a lot of really fun genres that spawned out from N64. There was also a lot of really weird shit that came out of a controller that weird. You got a lot of unique kind of games that played with like a single center joystick. That, I don't know, like you got Perfect Dark and GoldenEye. Those showed up, and
it's so
succeeded.
Goofy to have a controller that has competing control schemes.
Yeah. I don't know, man. I think my favorite console is probably just the 360. Like, it had everything I wanted on it.
Console or controller?
Console.
Console.
Oh, okay.
Favorite console.
For me, the if we're considering the Steam Deck, it would be the Steam Deck.
Yeah, Steam Deck's a console.
I'm gonna fire you into the sun.
It's a PC.
Strongly disagree. This is stupid.
A PC is also
Steam Deck illegal.
Yeah, but if we're not going to consider the Steam Deck, of the consoles that I've owned, the Saturn, but by hands down.
I love the Saturn.
Saturn is good, yeah.
It's not necessarily
a
modern console to play, and if you're going to get into Saturn games, it's there's some barriers, but they can be overcome. But the fact that it had inbuilt memory, you didn't need a memory card for the most part. The fact that the controller just has this amazing joystick. It's got 6 face buttons, which is great.
The D-pad on the Saturn is an all-time great.
Yeah, 100%. Incredible.
Yeah, because it had the like what do they call it?
It's like an 8-directional sort of
pad. Disc pivot thing. Yeah,
it's really good for like people complain that Sonic 3D or Sonic Blast has bad controls, and it's not a great game, but on the Saturn controller, it makes a lot more sense because the diagonals are just there. You can just use
They're just great. Yeah. The Saturn controller is one of the best controllers of all time, easily, especially for 2D games. It is my preferred controller, and
the face buttons were so good, so satisfying. It's absurd.
Really, really amazing controller. Really great system. Like the thing is the library of the Saturn is like relatively small, especially if you only speak English. Or eFigs, you're kind of screwed in Europe if you love Saturn.
That was weird as fuck going to like a pre-owned store in Japan and be like, whoa, what are all these fucking Sega games? What the hell? Where do these come from?
In Japan, the Saturn's library is much bigger, and the Saturn has some really interesting games, some really great hidden gems, some really interesting hardware in general.
There's a lot of VNs that didn't there was never made it over.
Yeah,
it was fucking bonkers.
A pistol and a control, like a joystick, not a joystick.
They had there's a lot of really great Saturn games. I think though, if I had to pick my favorite, like if it was like take a single console and its entire library of games with you to an island, it would be really tough. There are 3 consoles I'm thinking of. I guess one of them is a handheld. And I'm going to exclude PC from this because PC is like its own platform. It's not in the spirit of the question, but I think,
Colonel.
I think there are 3.
Go ahead.
I think there are 3 systems that are just in terms of like value, innovation, number of just incredible games that released on it. And I'm not counting backwards compatibility because that's cheating. We're talking generationally. First one, PS1. Just one of the most insane generations of gaming ever. An insane amount of incredible, interesting, unique games. Again, tons of cool controllers, tons of really great software, really interesting, unique looking hardware. The PS1 is just an all-time incredible system. It cannot be understated how good it is. The second would obviously be the PS2. The PS2 has one of the largest libraries of games, one of the best-selling systems of all time. Just such a crazy era of like weird experimentation and strange games. Really foundational for modern game design. So if you're really hard stuck into like how modern games feel, the PS2 kind of is like different enough that it would feel really unique, but also veering into what we would now consider to be modern game design ideas. And then I think the last one, the one that I is kind of a dark horse in this race, but was incredibly influential and is just, if you actually look at the library of the system, it is mind-boggling how good it is. The Nintendo DS.
Oh, I thought you were going to say the SNES.
I mean,
I wasn't going to say the SNES. I love the SNES. The SNES is great, but the Nintendo DS is one of the craziest. I can't believe it exists. To this day, I still think about how many DS games were just so unique and interesting and doing new things. And I think in terms of just value and like the breadth of games you can play on a device, the DS is just so fucking unfathomable. And people nowadays, this is why I'm such a hardliner against the 3DS. I really dislike the 3DS for a lot of reasons. I don't think it's a very good console because
3D.
I've never owned one, but it's like
it's not the. So a lot of people who love the 3DS are like, oh, the 3DS is so amazing. Think about all the good games you can play. This is just like basically a straight up fact. All of the best 3DS games are remakes of games or remasters of games that exist either on the DS or on other consoles getting ported to the 3DS, or are just DS games that you can play through backwards compatibility. I think as a system, if you're just looking at like exclusives and games developed for the hardware, the 3DS is a dire system to own. I have never liked the 3DS as a result of that. It does have some very good games, and a lot of those remasters are the best way to play the game. So it's not like, I'm not saying throw the 3DS in a trash, it's a bad system. But I think as like, if I had to pick out of a library of games and we're not counting backwards compatibility, I think the DS takes it over the 3DS any day of the week.
Yeah,
it is just such a crazy system.
The introduction of dual screen was like almost, it felt like it was a muse for so many developers.
It was simultaneously a gimmick and one of the most interesting and innovative things to ever.
Yeah.
Like it's just crazy because we don't think back to the Wii like this. The Wii felt like a crazy, interesting novelty and innovation at the time. By the time we were done with it, it's just like, I fucking hate this. This was a bad idea. I think about
that. Do they? What?
Yes, they do. People fucking hate waggle controls. Are you kidding me?
Well, well, that's fair. Okay.
Yeah.
No,
shovelware, waggle controls. It's just a GameCube with a motion control remote. Like,
yeah, I guess it shows that I'd never owned one, but I have played it. I've had good times.
The Wii's a great. I mean, the Wii has some great games and it's really interesting. But the thing is that like the DS, its gimmick has not overstayed its welcome. And but the crazy thing is when they tried to do the DS again, which was the Wii U,
the DS again,
it was awful. Like you just like the DS was just such a flash in the pan. It was like just an incredible experience. And
they were riding on the coattails of the Game Boy Advance.
They were.
That matters a lot.
What they built off of it is the thing.
They did. I mean, definitely, even in price alone. And to the point where the GBA kept getting games for a long time while the DS was out.
For quite a while,
which is great. The
and
GBA
the DS let you play them. Yeah,
cool. It just sucks that the best format, which is the original GBA, has this terrible screen and it's just crappy plastic. But that's what emulation is for, which is legal and good.
Yeah, the DS is good.
Emulation is great. If I could pick one console to bring with me, it would be one of my handheld emulator devices. Got 'em. Give me RetroArch. That's what I want.
RetroArch, yeah.
I don't know, man. The DS battery was real fucking solid. That thing barely ever needed to charge.
Yeah, that thing lasted quite a while.
That's absurd. Looking at the stats, it's like, how do people put up with going backwards in terms of battery life?
Because they don't. I mean. Most of them don't have a knowledge or also don't have a choice. At some point, you just have to. Yeah.
Next question.
I think I'm just like I'm always a contrarian anyway.
But like Keith isn't that.
The part of my brain that just enjoys the stupid doomed idiot consoles that have dumb ideas. So I'm just like, because like there's a correct answer and there's a reflexive answer. Like reflexively, I'm like, my favorite consoles are the Nintendo 64, the Dreamcast, and the Wii U because I love those guys. Look at this. Look how stupid they are.
I mean, I think N64 is a legitimate answer because the quality, even though the people say the N64 failed
and lineup despite having the funniest controller and the most cobbled together goofy ass, like, here's an expansion pack you need for 2 video games. now the front of your console's red all the time. Like there's a bunch of hilarious bizarre the rumble pack you buy separately to jam into the back of your controller and it sticks out 6 inches, and what a weird funny console. It was the most toy of all the consoles. It feels like a toy in a way that even the ones that gestured at being toys didn't accomplish. Like that genuinely feels like a children's toy.
For some reason, I thought Keith already answered this question because I knew he was going to say N64.
I was going to say at the beginning, and then a lot of discussion happened. And then I was just like, I just was thinking about like, reflexively, I want to say those consoles, but the true answer is that like my favorite consoles that I played the most and put huge amounts of time in all my favorite games on were like the PS1, the PS2, and the 360. But that's just like boring because that's just like the central spine of all of gaming is those that lineage consoles there. Like the first like 3 or 4 years of the 360 is like an upsetting release schedule. We're like, what the fuck what were they cooking? How did this keep going like this? How did every major game come out like every week throughout like 2006 to 2008 ish? You're like,
lots of grunge and lots of
genuinely insane output. Let's see.
I legitimately thought I was losing my mind for a second because I was like, I could have sworn Keith already answered this question.
Yeah. I also just sing the praises of the 64 a lot in general, so you would anticipate it regardless.
Yeah, I knew that you like the 64 in general. Yeah, but I was like, I legitimately couldn't remember. I was like, did Keith answer this, or am I just hallucinating? What the fuck just happened?
I have such a soft spot for Perfect Dark and stuff, despite also being the kind of gamer that does not loop through games over and over again and memorize them and like drill them into my brain. So whenever I say a game's my favorite game, someone can immediately knowledge check me about it because I haven't played it that much because I've never played any games that much.
Yeah,
I constantly pivot to new things. But yeah, playing rare games, playing Jet Force Gemini and That's honestly a lot of rare games. Anyway, that one boyo asks, would you say that your audience has changed since you openly came out as gay and changed your avatar mascot to your persona? Yes.
Yeah, probably. I mean, that's
wait, what was the answer? What was the question? I didn't get that. Sorry.
Has
I came out as gay and furry, and I particularly changed my branding to match that, and there was a very negative response to some of that. Overall, my channel has always grown faster than it has shrunk, and like I brought in a bunch of people with the stuff, and I have like when I cover furry stuff, it does well, but I'm particularly like noticing the audience drain in that. At some point I just kind of lost my staples, like what genres I should cover to most consistently have viewership stopped being true because seemingly a bunch of people left or lost interest, or the algorithm even maybe treated me weird as a result of bringing in a furry audience, and then like changed who it suggests my content to and might have cut people off itself. It's hard to say which stuff is people being overtly weird about the stuff and which stuff is like, oh, my passive decisions have been amplified by the algorithm and now this channel doesn't exist in my brain because I didn't click on the furry visual novel or whatever. But I do have a bit of a crisis where when I upload furry visual novels, they do great. And if I upload basically anything else, I'm genuinely struggling to get people to watch anything.
Yeah,
like
I had that problem too.
Yeah, like I always like it used to be that the biggest staples of all on the entire channel were Souls likes and puzzle games. In particular, because I got my entire start covering Souls games, going from Demon Souls to Dark Souls 1, and that was timed around the time that Dark Souls 2 was coming out, and then that was like a glut of games of like, here's Dark Souls 2, let's play some other Souls like in the process, go back and play the expansion for Dark Souls 1, oh, remake of Dark Souls 2, oh, Bloodborne, like through that whole era. That was like when I was going, that was like the roadmap to 2016, which in parallel I then did Grimrock, Talos Principle, and with The Witness for the puzzle games, and that all took off. And yeah, like more recently, post furry and stuff like that, like new Zelda games come out. I cover Zelda games. No one really watches those playthroughs, and like that's like the other thing. Like once upon a time, Zelda did so well for me that just playing Breath of the Wild for a while made my Patreon want to vote for every single 3D Zelda game back to back, along with every missed game. And those videos both did great for Patreon and did well on my channel because people loved watching me do that stuff. And I struggle more and more to get people to watch the basic stuff they used to always watch, even though my content hasn't changed. I just happen to also be uploading stuff that is another thing, but that was always true. I was always uploading other stuff. It's just like the other thing I'm uploading for visual novels is more successful than any other third or fourth thing I would have uploaded before, like, I don't know, Alpha Protocol or something that no one would watch back then. So like, it should be good to upload something new that does well, but people are weird about it because it's coded as like queer stuff, so people subconsciously turn away from it or actively leave it and run away from it. In particular, what stood out to me was that I would stream games sometimes, and then I would see my analytics a week later, and it would be like, on this day you lost 50 subscribers, and I'm like, I've never seen that happen before. At least outside of the context of YouTube being like, yo, we got rid of a bunch of bots today, so if you see a weird spike, don't worry about it. Like they do a special announcement to explain on the graph that's happening sometimes, and there's no accompanying thing there. And I would look back and notice, and I was like, why do I keep losing like 50 subscribers every 3 days or so? And I'm like, oh, I correlate back, and it's like, it's because I thought it would be really funny to have a thumbnail of Mero and Leo kissing as a stream thumbnail. So people literally just seeing me, that the fact that I'm streaming and seeing the thumbnail and be like, ugh, and like literally just abandoning ship out of the entire channel forever because they saw one thumbnail that they didn't like, and it's like that immediate. I'm like, huh, okay. So if that's indicative of anything, then there probably has been a continuous demographic shift and sort of drain there where while the channel is growing, gaining furry viewers and losing like puzzle and RPG and Souls-like viewers, and increasingly don't know what to cover besides furry visual novels in a way that's frustrating and makes me all the more want to redirect my efforts towards making video essays, because at least there I can keep working on something and growing, because I don't know how to save this channel if it's really that easy to just like fuck up your demographics and not know how to make content anymore. It's frustrating and it's stupid and it's annoying.
That's kind of what it is. I begrudgingly, like, the more I look at stuff on my channel and when I upload things, the more I can see, like, yeah, visual novels just seem to always do well. Like, I don't know what it is, I don't know why, but like, yeah, my viewership for visual novels is always better, and it's like, damn, all right, well,
Yeah.
Guess I gotta get reading. I better start reading.
And yeah, people keep being like, "Why don't you cover puzzle games anymore?" And the answer is, I do. In fact, I don't think I've even reduced my throughput much. I keep doing another puzzle game every 2 or 3 months usually, or whatever. But people aren't watching them, including the people asking about them. I think like they just like stopped engaging with my channel for a variety of reasons, and that's a little frustrating because it's like. This is all coupled with people being like, wow, he's like happier than I've ever sounded. He really sounds like he's coming into his own. And it's night and day watching your old stuff versus your new stuff. Like, you seem so comfortable and like the content's all way better now and stuff. And it's like, wow. And it's failing. It's bizarre because it's a personality driven channel. So you think me just being me was the whole point. And so me being more of me being like no, throw it in the garbage reaction is like a tough thing to navigate. But I don't think I'm going to stop doing YouTube. I just might have to pivot towards other avenues of YouTubing, because the Let's Play channel in decline, and that sucks. And I need to have a life. Let's see. Kyoto Mokui 6676 asks, how do you feel about Elden Ring game that's coming out next year? I think it's called Night Rain.
I love when people ask questions about things they don't know anything about.
I hate that game. I didn't have any fun playing it. I hate it. There was 0 moments.
None of us have played it, so we don't know, but I'm interested in it, and it seems like it will be fun multiplayer stuff, and it seems to be leaning into a lot of the things that the community likes about the Souls games, so I'm interested. It's not taking time away from whatever the heck From is developing next, because it was like a side game made by a small team, like directed by someone who doesn't direct the other Souls games. He just does battle direction and design. So
it's extremely funny that when you're watching the trailer, it kind of looks like Fortnite, and that there's like a barrier moving, and you're like, huh. Like, you're like, what am I looking at? Trying to piece together what you're watching during the trailer is very confusing.
It seems to be very cool, like loadout based, build based, quick pickup, roguelike, almost deck builder-esque, like, seems really cool. I'm very interested in it.
Like, I'll just have to accept that it's probably not going to be like the level design experience I hope for from software games, but like it is inherently built to be co-op, and that inherently making the game inherently multiplayer makes that less applicable anyway, because half the time somebody else will just storm slightly ahead of you and trigger all the level stuff before you, so like it's not even the same experience. But it'll probably slot nicely into a weekend multiplayer thing we do for a couple months, and we'll be like, that was neat, and that'll be the experience.
I'll only play it if it doesn't have swamps.
It'll have swamps.
Oof.
It's gonna have swamps.
Hard sell.
It'll have a special ring to wear to move faster in the swamp.
It's part of the From Software SDK. It's just swamps. Otherwise, don't work.
You like the moment you title the game Dark Souls, all of your level assets just become swamps. You're like, oh no.
No, they have a drop down. Where do you want your swamp? And they said
where it's mandated. You're missing your corporate mandated swamp. Where are you putting it on the map? Show us.
Exactly. Yeah.
Miyazaki just busts in, breaks the window. Where's your swamp? It's like, oh fuck. All right, we'll put it right here.
That is true.
When does that come out? Next year? I haven't seen the trailer.
I don't know if we know the exact release date. Relatively, the alpha or the closed beta or network test or whatever is in January, I think.
Oh, that's real soon. Okay.
It was like from the network test to this to release for Bloodborne was like 6 months, I think.
I was gonna say probably like end of year then next year is what they're.
Really?
Shit. Can you guys not do it? Can you do it now before the tariffs?
It's probably going to be earlier.
For video games.
If the network test is January, it's a simple game.
Tariffs apply to digital goods?
Yes.
Yep. Well, anything imported.
Enough to think about that.
Yeah, and technically, well, I guess it depends on if Japan's part of the tariff fight.
I don't know. I have no idea.
Who knows?
Toledo asks, "What are some aspects, story, visuals, and gameplay, etc., you'd like to see for a visual novel space?" Editors.
Editors.
I would like to see editors in furry visual novels.
I don't really care about the content. Maybe stop making stories that are just like vapid, utopic dating sims. Like that would be cool.
What's wrong with that?
What was an example?
There's just a million and 50,000 examples of those, and I just don't care.
I don't care. I'm not engaging with the part of these questions that are slightly drama baiting.
Loaded. I'm not naming anyone. Yeah. I'm just saying there's like a million dating sims out there. Write something different.
Tell me who will beat them up.
Top 3 furry visual novels. I'd say Arches, Echo, and Astra, which should be obvious because I cover all of the games I read on my channel right here. So you know my opinions of all the games already because I'm not reading the other ones because I don't want to spoil them for when I cover them eventually. So it's pretty self-evident which games I do and don't like.
I don't care. That's my answer.
For me, I'm going to say the only top 3 or the only 3 furry visual novels that I played. Top 1 is well, actually I haven't finished it, so it doesn't matter. Since November, Adastra and Valhalla.
I'm gonna delete Since November from Itch.io right now.
I am actively waiting for Neko Jishi 2 to come out so I can play that, I guess.
Linen partners.
Like, it's taken a while, but I see that they're working on it. Like that's all I could say. I don't. Is Nekopara technically a furry visual novel? I think it's more anime than furry.
I don't know.
Even though it's the cat girls. I don't count cat girls as furry.
Then they're they're different.
Then Neko Jishi is the only one I've ever played.
It just doesn't feel culturally relevant.
Wow. Okay. Well, that's a little.
I'm not saying relevant to culture. I'm saying relevant to furry culture. It seems like a completely different thing. Maybe any announcements from the Game Awards that interest you? Asks Minos99. I did not watch it.
Next week. Or the week after.
What was the question? I didn't hear it. Sorry.
Any announcements from the Game Awards that interest you?
Yeah. Onimusha remake is cool. Or Onimusha, new Onimusha in the RE engine is cool.
Okami 2.
Okami 2.
I was genuinely wondering if they were going to do Onimusha or not. That's interesting.
Yeah, they're doing Onimusha instead of Code Veronica, which is literally what I said that they would do to people, and they were like, "No, they're definitely gonna do it." And I was like, "No, they're not. They're not gonna. They're gonna do something else first." And then people were like, "No, they're
a genuinely neat property."
It is. It's very cool. So I'm interested in RE Engine Onimusha. I'm very interested in Night Rain. I'm very interested in. I don't know. The announcements this year were pretty good, just in general. I feel like there's something for everyone. Fumito Ueda's new game got announced. It looks cool.
There's nothing for me.
Virtua Fighter 6 VF6 looks fucking awesome. I'm super stoked for that.
The other 5.
The people who made Blasphemous are making the next Ninja Gaiden. That seems sick. Very cool.
That's a good pairing.
Huh?
Yeah.
What do you mean? They're like sprite based?
Yeah, 2D anime art looking sprite based Ninja Gaiden by the Blasphemous guys. Yeah, it looks great.
Oh yeah.
That's kind of hype to hear. I'm excited about that.
Yeah, well, don't spoil yourselves on the trailers. We'll talk about it when we do the trailer show sometime. But
I haven't watched it yet.
Spoiling us on the trailer.
I'm telling you, some of the games are coming out, but you haven't seen them yet.
I'm not watching them. Just continually squanders the fact that they own Ninja Gaiden by just never making.
Yeah,
because it wasn't. I think Yaiba Ninja Gaiden Z, the really bad one, was also made by somebody else. Like they keep not making them.
Yeah, something like that. I don't know.
What are they doing?
I mean, hey. Sega's like
there's some
sometimes.
Really high profile ports that are coming out that look great. Fucking Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is coming to PC in less than a month. I'm going to play that the moment it comes out. Last of Us Part 2 is coming to PC. Exactly like I fucking said, and people said it wasn't going to happen.
I already have it for the PS5. I don't care.
I was so fucking right. I even guessed the exact time frame on when it was going to come out, and I was right. So fucking told y'all. So Naughty Dog announced a new game. I'm not super interested in it, but it looks cool. I'm arguing with everyone. The Witcher 4 was revealed.
Oh, that's the one that I saw the announcement of.
Is it Witcher 4 or is it like a side thing?
No, it's Witcher 4. The Witcher 4.
Okay.
It's not with Geralt though, but
yeah, it's not with Geralt.
Well, that's great. Isn't that going to make the gamer gate people happy? That it's
they're very mad because it stars a woman.
They're mad?
But that's what what do you mean? Is that what
they're mad? They're mad because Ciri's woke and ugly. Yeah, they're making a Ciri game.
Next, they're gonna say that Ciri is gay.
So they're doing the literally inevitable follow-up to Witcher
the thing
3
that everyone said that they should do.
Witcher 3.
Yeah, they're doing the thing everyone said that they should do, and now all of those everyone's are mad.
Segments already, and was all about finding Siri and then enabling her destiny.
There is an announcement.
Replace Geralt as the protagonist of the franchise.
There is an announcement that I think Colonel will like.
I saw another one, but
they're doing another Dying Light. You like those games, don't you?
I did like the first one, but the second one apparently didn't have a firearm, so I was like, whatever.
Apparently they're doing a new one, so that's for you. I don't know. There's more stuff to be announced.
There's a new Outer Worlds though, but I'm not.
There is.
Do a let's play without any combat. It's gonna be joyful.
No,
you're gonna do a pacifist run. That's fun.
No, not a pacifist run. I'm gonna get out all the combat. Just play.
Edit it out entirely.
Edit it out. Yeah.
Okay.
That's the game how I want it. That's
what would actually be fun is if you just didn't kill anyone.
I hope they make that video game this time instead of a bad one.
You said Outer Worlds, right?
Yeah.
Outer Worlds, not Outer Wilds.
The shooting RPG.
What is there left? I fucking killed everyone. What do you mean? What is there to do? I saved the world.
Well, can't import your save.
There's another ship up top. They're gonna ship in more people.
Okay, well, the only people they could ship in that would be a problem would be capitalists, so we'll blow it up on entry.
Well,
there's no threat to me anymore. That's crazy. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. Ganasis Wave asks, question for everyone in the cast, which do you consider a worse story? Something that doesn't really have any problems in terms of writing and plot, but its core theme is mind-numbingly stupid, or a story with an interesting theme / premise that really hurts to read? Basically, which is worse, Detroit Become Human or Yick? And I'm like, I can't tell which one's which in their example.
Yick is worse for sure.
The thing that where a premise is interesting, or like the idea behind it is interesting, but the execution is bad, I think is always worse than something that is fine but crafted well.
That's
like using that example that was just made.
I can't accept the basic premise in the example that Detroit Become Human is a game that's where the writing and plot is fine. It's just premise is stupid. I'm like, no, everything about that game was kind of a train wreck.
Also that's
I don't even necessarily agree with that. Like, I think Detroit Become Human is fine. It's a fine thing. Nothing about it is particularly terrible or good.
I mean, it's weird to compare to Yick.
Sure,
about stuff that,
but like the idea behind it is racism and prejudice is bad. Yeah. Now, am I saying is it super well executed? No, but I mean it's the same exact thing. Like this is a phenomenon I like to think of as the Green Book phenomenon. People are because the discourse around the movie Green Book was it didn't deserve Best Picture, but it won Best Picture. People are mad about this. Many people who did not see Green Book took this idea as Green Book must be a terrible movie. This is an injustice. But in reality, the issue isn't that it was a bad movie. It's that it was just fine. It's a movie that exists in social studies classes. If you watch it, you are not worse off. It doesn't solve racism. It doesn't solve prejudice. There are flaws with it. But as a film, as just a thing you watch in a sitting, it's fine. It's got okay performances. The script isn't the worst thing ever, right? Like, it's an issue because it won through a ranked choice vote where a bunch of people happened to vote on it as their second or third inoffensive pick, and then it accumulated into a win over movies that were more pointed and better than that. But because the Academy Awards were so split that year. So with something like this, like Detroit Become Human is the same thing. It's fine. It's people are mad that it's not better than it is, and that's totally worthwhile and fine.
I mean, I played it when it came out multiple times. It's just that I'm just like it has some absolutely wild writing moments throughout it.
Sure, absolutely. But I think in terms of like the execution as a video game, like people are like Detroit Become it's the worst thing ever, and it's like no, it just isn't great.
It's mid.
It's not good. It's
fine.
It's honestly, I think it's the best David Cage game.
Yeah, well, me too. Absolutely. 100% his best game.
Although I didn't play Beyond Two Souls.
Bar.
What a bar. Yeah.
I did not play Beyond Two Souls, and I only watched Heavy Rain Let's Plays, but
they're very Beyond Two Souls.
Beyond Two Souls is probably the best one he's ever made, just because you're allowed to beat up children.
I disagree. I think Beyond Two Souls is fucking terrible. I think
that's good. See, the thing
choice to tell it out of order didn't work at all.
No. It's more of it's not the story, right? It's more of the action.
You just like the fact that we had a co-op mode where I let you play as the ghost and terrorize the protagonist who you hated, so you got to cathartically enjoy the game.
You can just beat up kids as a ghost. That's a great premise.
I let Andrew play as Aiden the entire game.
Wow,
it was a very specific playthrough.
Very fun.
To be clear, was my second playthrough of the game. I already knew what was going to happen. I wasn't that my opinion is not based on that. But I did do a third playthrough of the game, and when they released the chronological remix mode, where the scenes play in order, and that reveals how weird the story is too, because the where the gaps exist and how long they are sometimes are so strange. You skip ahead
every
through
character
so much of your life and bizarre beats when you actually see the story chronologically.
Yes.
All of his games are wild. His games are wild. I always think about the fact that like I was locked out of the good ending in Detroit Become Human, because at the end of the game he's like, "Which one of you's the real Connor? I can't tell. I'm Mr. Krabs." And then he points a gun at you like, "Prove me that you're the real guy. You tell me my son's name," or something like that. And I didn't notice the name, and it wasn't because I forgot as a player. This wasn't like the fucking like attempted suicide that happens in Life is Strange, where you how good of a friend were you? It's like literally, it's like there's like a spot where you're browsing his room and you and there's like binary choices of what stuff to look at before like you get jump scared by the scene moving on. And I just literally had not encountered his son's name ever in the game. I checked. And he also never shared it with me. So it made no sense he was testing me on that, because he also never told me about his son. So I didn't know it from him either. But that's the life and death choice about whether or not he shoots you or the fake Connor is based on information he never provided. So it doesn't work as a test. And how do you fuck that? I don't know how you fuck that up. I just don't know how you fuck that up it's the climax of your entire story, and it doesn't make basic logical sense. So it's so strange. I was like, well, bye, Connor. Back to the concentration camp storyline. Just guess Connor's story's over.
I like that. Since we're talking about, I forgot the name of the game. The game that we're talking about. It's made competently enough that you can tell some of the bad decisions are done on purpose, instead of just being left to chance. Some of the things that don't work. I think that one in particular that Keith is talking about is not necessarily done on purpose, though.
No, that's just a huge fuck up. It's just a bizarre gap in the coding of the game that they didn't. But they left too much of the game to be non-linear and all over the place, and then made a pivotal moment be about a scene that wasn't mandatory, and not in a way that is meaningful. Like just confusing.
Ballsy. It's ballsy. With a big juicy.
Because I was genuinely being friendly with him the whole game. I wasn't being antisocial, so it just didn't make sense that I didn't know his son's name. Like it wasn't provided.
It comes out of nowhere. Oh yeah.
Who was actively trying to get along with him the entire game.
Are you really my friend? How many COVID vaccines did I have?
I spent way too long trying to confirm that. I'm like, where was it? Where did he tell me? It must be in here somewhere, and it just wasn't. It never came up in my playthrough. It was missable. I'm like, that doesn't work then. Why would he think I know that? That's not the basis of the whole which one's the truth. Tell me something only he would know thing. Like that doesn't work.
That'd be very funny if it was an option.
It also doesn't work because
like
they're
you
all,
could just tell him,
magic.
You never told me, and he's like, "Fuck, you're right."
Yeah, but it also doesn't work because they're all magic cop robots attached to the internet. So technically like every single one of him should know the son's name, including the fake ones. So it's also a bad question in universe, but it's also unanswerable in game. So there's like 100 reasons it was just like what the fuck did you do when you wrote this scene?
Yeah,
I think the variability of those games means that your impression of the writing can vary so much from person to person based on how your playthrough went, because the different options can be selectively awful.
Selectively awful. That sounds like,
because that game has insane variability to it, which they made a bunch of great pains to paint to like surface to the player. It's one of the most genius things that game did was to give you like constant hints about just how much the story branches, because a lot of these games genuinely don't. And that game actually does have like entirely different like sequences will play out based on some of the choices you made, and
like a normal RPG.
It sincerely does what most games in that do that stuff pretend to do and are lying. Like the Walking Dead game and stuff like that would be like,
which character should live or die, and then those two characters that live or die just fill each other's shoes for the rest of the game to be a slightly different flavor of the same character. It's like, oh, okay, I see the tricks here. What's the worst puzzle game you remember playing?
I have a hot take for this, actually.
Uh-oh.
There is a game that a lot of people really love, and I really like the writing for it, but I think the puzzles are fundamentally poorly designed and shouldn't really have been in the game, or at least about half of the puzzles.
It's Portal 2.
Hotel Dusk is a really bad puzzle game. And the reason for this is that it constantly makes you do multiple choice questions at breakpoints in chapters where you like make revelations about who the culprits are and who the solution to all these puzzles are and stuff. And it's tangible puzzles where you're like actually interacting with the DS are pretty good, but they're constantly broken up by these multiple choice, like, who was in the cafe at this time? I saw this person with a cut. Where was the cut? Every single answer, every single set of answers to these moments is exactly the same. The answer to every single multiple choice question series in Hotel Dusk is BACBA. Exactly the same every single time.
Is that true?
100% true. I noticed it last time I was playing it, and I was like, this is fucking crazy. And it happens
extremely funny.
Literally
That's very funny.
Every single time you get a multiple choice question, you answer them the same exact way. And I noticed the pattern on literally the second time I did it, and I did it for the rest of the game and passed every single one.
That's funny. You're just sitting there like, well, okay, this time it has to. Okay. Well,
and to make it worse, most of these moments are like summaries of things you did 15 minutes prior. So that really killed my love for that game, because while I think that the story is really cool and the overall development of some of the puzzles in it are really cool, the vast majority of things you do moment to moment in that game is walk around, touch people to like get them to like spout their line at you, and then reconfirm the thing you just read. So I think that game should have just been a visual novel, or they should have leaned harder into the like actually use the DS gimmicks puzzles. There's a really great puzzle in that game that requires you to close the DS, which was really cool at the time.
That is pretty cool.
Yeah, but there's just, there's a lot in that game that is just unfortunate. The sequel has some better puzzles in it, and it's a much better puzzle game overall as puzzles. But yeah, that was a damper for me. But I did really like the content of that game's story. It's just I thought the puzzles were kind of.
For me, if we're talking puzzle games specifically, I don't play that many, honestly. And I remember finding one of the Trine games that we played together kind of rubbish. So it would be probably, I think, Trine 4. I don't remember exactly.
Oh, the later Trine games, yeah. They can be a little rough. They kind of lose steam.
One of them in particular was just genuinely awful. I'm trying to remember which one, but they can be iffy. They're also just like, they're so sandboxy that at some point it's just like you fighting with your friends to not get killed by each other's physics, and then one of you just like jumps over the puzzle, and then you're like, oh, I did it. I guess I won. And like like so little goes, like there's so little involved in many of the puzzles that it's like, oh, I guess it's over. I guess somebody solved it. There was a really rough one where the 3D Trine was genuinely terrible. Because they're all 3D graphics, but they're all 2D gameplay.
The top-down kind of thing,
No, the top-down one's like, that's Summoner Scrolls or some.
Oh, it's not Trine,
that's their spin-off, which was also iffy. It was like Magicka, but kind of bad.
Kind of iffy.
Trine like 3 or 4 has depth to it, so it's not just 2D. You can go forward and backwards a bit. So it was like, well, I mean, not even just a bit, actually. It wasn't like a beat 'em up or anything. It was just in 3D, but with a fixed camera angle that's floating off on one side. So it looked like Super Mario 3D World kind of visually. Like that was the camera angle sort of, because it was still has to be shared for 4 players and have a shared camera in that way. That game was immediately broken in 100 ways by the increased complexity of having the extra axis, and that they had no control over their puzzles. You could quickly find a handful of gimmicks that would break most of the game and just let you skip everything. And one of the worst parts was the fact that we quickly realized that like the warrior guy can wall jump. And so if he goes to a corner, he can wall jump off of both walls in the corner, back and forth on an infinite loop, just basically climbing straight up the corner. And he could do that to skip every puzzle in the game. So that was rough.
Yeah.
I don't have like an encyclopedic knowledge or memory of all the puzzle games I've ever played, but the most recent bad one I've played was Entropy Center. A game that immediately gives you Portal vibes because you're given a gun that has magical puzzle solving properties in a first person game, and there's an AI voice, which is a game I've played 10 times already now. But you know, they live and die based on their mechanics, and sometimes they try to be funny, and that usually doesn't work. This game's just kind of incomprehensible and also way too shallow. So it's a game where the premise is you have the entropy gun. You can rewind entropy. So like if a rock pillar collapses, you can rewind it back into being a rock pillar and so on. And so the implementation of this is that you can basically rewind almost anything to go back. But what's really baffling and confusing is that like the examples of what they count as entropy or what they think this gun can do are extremely inconsistent both in lore and in mechanics. So like there are things that you rewind and they repair themselves, and there are things that you rewind to just make them physically rewind to where they were earlier. But seemingly it's just like it goes back by X amount of like time the thing did something. So if something isn't moving, it doesn't count towards its time or something. Because like with the puzzle elements you interact with in the chambers, you're rewinding stuff, and they will just rewind like in real time ish through like the last 10 seconds of interaction you had. But like there's like destroyed debris everywhere that you can rewind back to its original state, and it'll just go back even though it was like that before you even came in the room and so on. Like it's been like that for ages. The rules are extremely strange and weird, and very quickly you start realizing that all this stuff aside, just mechanically there's only so much you can do with this thing, because ultimately the game is functioning just about doing stuff backwards. So it's like the level of puzzle is often just the equivalent of like, oh, the bounce pads from Portal, and the paint from Portal, and a box from Portal, and pushing a button from Portal. But the gimmick is you gotta do them all backwards, because then you press these 3 buttons with a box in reverse order, so that when you rewind the box, it'll press the buttons in the correct order as you walk through these gates, like those kind of puzzles.
I'm already tired.
Yeah. The game has it's like, yeah, it's the most exhausting way to do puzzles, because you have to do them all backwards in real time, and you have to keep doing the setup over and over again if you mess it up.
Yeah.
But it's also bad because the gimmick of doing stuff backwards just isn't that much of a puzzle. So very quickly the game kind of hits a mechanical ceiling of how much it can even really express. And you realize, eventually I realized like, oh, this game doesn't really have like a climax it's building to mechanically that's going to make this all like satisfying by the end. Like it's not going to be like Portal 1 where you play the series of like hostile tutorial levels, then you like break out of the system and you now have time to use all the stuff you've learned. It's like the game pokes at that. It wants to be Portal 2 specifically, so it has an overgrown, broken down facility, and you're piecing together what happened to all the people and so on. It's so Portal 2 that it's like egregious how much it's like copying Portal 2's homework. But it doesn't have any kind of mechanical peak to build to, because its systems just aren't that interesting, and they chained the entire game to a mechanical expression that just didn't actually have anywhere to go. And so the hardest level of the game was like level like 5 of 8 or something like that. Like it was like really relatively early compared to where it should have been. And when you get to the final levels, it's just kind of larger, bigger set pieces of stuff blowing up and you rewinding it in a very basic cutscene kind of way, as opposed to like a big puzzle that really brings it all together. There's no like mechanical climax, the equivalent of like you shooting a portal at the moon. That's like, oh my god, this was building to this makes sense. Like,
that's kind of like what puzzle games are like a lot. Like ever since in the 90s, that's kind of the point of puzzle games, getting like a right.
Yeah, well, it's like you're waiting. Like the idea is like akin to like our discussion last week about Mario games and Astrobot and stuff, and about like having each level be about expressing a particular idea and exploring the mechanical depth of what you can plumb from this thing. Usually it's about that. Like that's usually what each world of a puzzle game is. Like let's do all the permutations of what you can do to trick the player with this mechanic, and then all the for this new mechanic, and then you do that like a few in a row, and then you're like, okay, now these mechanics are together. Now what can we do? And this game just did not have depth to it. But it's also just super weird. Like there's a box in that game, and this whole time, because it's a crumpled box. It's a box that crumples like a soda can. This whole game, you've been rewinding physical objects around the environment with a rewind button. When you rewind this box, it uncrumples. And when you stop rewinding this box, it crumples again. This box cannot be moved around the environment with the rewind mechanic, because the rewind mechanic, for some reason, exclusively affects whether it's crumpled or not, and not whether or not it's in a physical location. So one, that's a lore break, where you've been moving stuff physically through space with the rewind old game, so why does it stop working here? But also, like, what a terrible mechanic. If a gun, you just have a gun that makes this thing stand up and sit down over and over again, basically. It's like an elevator you click on with your gun, and that's all it does. And they made a world about that. There's nowhere to go with that. It just goes up and down when you click on it. What puzzles are you gonna get out of that? It's garbage.
You really need to send yourself up somewhere.
Yeah, and what really sealed the deal for me is that I played. I gave the game every last shake I could. I got increasingly disillusioned as it came out, and this playthrough's not out yet. It's only on Patreon, but now you know how it's gonna go, I guess, when it comes out publicly. When I beat the entire game, I was like, well, that was disappointing, but. Well, it does, because it's a Portal 2 clone and they copied Portal 2 homework every step of the way. They did make a level editor so that the community can make custom maps. Okay, first thing I see on the level editor is there's a developer created like hardcore maps campaign. Here's like 6 levels, hardcore challenge difficulty by the developers. Okay, here we go.
Cool.
This must be the fucking Rainbow Road ass like final challenge by the developers. This is going to be the mechanics push their very limits. Here we go. And I went and tried those out, and I beat them all immediately. And I didn't have to think at all. They still had nowhere to go with their game. Like there was no ceiling to shatter. They genuinely were just completely, and like that game that will probably never have a thriving online community of custom maps, because like while Portal could keep going crazier and crazier with the stuff because of how good their core mechanic was, this game fundamentally had a bad core mechanic and was limited by that every step of the way and could never go anywhere with that.
But here's the question. At the end, did it have a credits song?
I don't think it did.
That is legit.
Wow.
That's groundbreaking.
I guess
I
it's
like
Portal.
I like that. That's good. You know, that's a statement of intent right there. Making a Portal clone without I like that.
I've also like forgotten it a bit, but like its entire story premise was massively fumbled. Like you think you see where they could go with it and what would be interesting about it, and instead they just like replace it with like a relatively generic, like in the climax, it's like, whoa, signs of stuff going crazy, writing on walls, repeating everywhere, it's all unraveling, you've been here before, and it's like it doesn't really fully explore its premise at all and really falls flat there. It's just a bad game, just a disappointing game.
Mm-hmm.
Fire it into the sun, which is funny because it's a game about the sun exploding over and over again, and you having to, because the entire game is you solving puzzles to build up enough entropy energy to run the entropy center to make the gun
just spoiling the whole thing for everybody else.
The sun unexplode. Well, that's like the starting premise. The sun's exploding over and over again, and that's like the center is there to stop it from doing that. Oh wait, no, the Earth was exploding. Whatever.
You know. Oh yeah, that's kind of.
It's a calamity undoer. Like it's an interesting premise to have like a thing on the moon whose job is to rewind the Earth whenever it destroys itself via various human error and fucked ups or meteor showers, and then they just rewind them like in a year and be like, okay, so here's what happened and here's how you can fix it, and then like Earth like has to like step it the fuck up and fix the problem, but it just does not work out as a premise. It was not a good game.
Mm-hmm.
You have a worse game, Andrew? Puzzle game?
I can't really think of anything that egregious. All I have is I think there's a what is it? I can't remember the name of it now because I played it so long ago. But the idea was it was a puzzle game that you're kind of just like going around and trying to solve. It's like you're looking for foxes in the world, and those foxes would let you go into like
Shelter?
Not shelter. Fuck. I do not remember what it's called. It was like something very. The name of it was something obvious, like a one-letter word, essentially. I think it was like fox or red or something like that.
I remember you hating this game.
Yeah, it was like the visuals were too much. Like it was asking you to
extremely stylized.
Yeah, it was extremely stylized to the point where it made the puzzles too hard to solve. But if you remove that element, the puzzles are very easy. So it was like this really frustrating of like, okay, well, the difficulty is just because you visually vomited. Like it's not that the puzzles like
Shelter was about badgers, not foxes. Gotcha.
This was like about surviving, I think.
No, it was mostly like a puzzle navigation game.
Oh.
You just walk around in like an isometric environment, try to find your little kitties, and then you figure out how to do a physics puzzle to get past the eagle, like that sort of thing.
So I don't know. That's it. It's hard to like find a puzzle game that's genuinely maddening, I guess. Tend to be like competent enough to not be memorable is usually my experience with puzzle games. Just like, okay, well, I did it.
That's a very servicey attitude towards. Oh, speaking of servicey, I haven't done my Wordle today.
Cool.
Are you at service to doing that?
I'm happy for you.
There's a very servicey attitude to puzzle games, but I do think that's kind of why I don't play puzzle games too much, because I want them to be like a Portal, basically. And there are a few games like that. But it's just that if you just want a brain teaser, I just like little things.
That's funny. I don't even
stuff.
think Portal is my baseline for a puzzle game. Like it's a good puzzle game, but I don't consider it as like the de facto.
It just popularized its own subgenre. So there's a lot of Portal likes.
Yes, there are a lot of Portal.
I think the game you're talking about was called Try.
Try, there you go.
A triangle game.
Yeah.
I remember you hating it. 6 years ago.
I hate. Oh, fuck. So yeah, that's the last time I played a puzzle game where I genuinely didn't like. I was mad at it. So that's not bad. 6 years ago, doing well. Good job, puzzle games. You guys are killing it.
Yeah, Portal's very much its own particular subgenre. There's a lot of like Sokoban derivatives, like games about moving things around in a particular little room, but there's like a particular sub rule set they added, which often can turn into like these big, at their more advanced end, turn into like these Rube Goldberg-esque like rule sets that you're interacting with. And there's like obviously there's adventure games and the sort of particular vibe that Myst has that's kind of more adventure game adjacent. Then there's like what are functionally like programming puzzle games that are sometimes literally programming, sometimes they're like programmatic behaviors in the game, which eventually Venn diagrams with the Sokoban type games to combine into Sokoban programmatic games. Puzzle games are kind of wild. Then they have their own tropes, like the first person puzzle games often have a narrator the entire game who you can't trust because they're the person that teaches you the game and they're explaining the plot, but over time you realize that they're lying to you and they're using you in some way to some end, and they're going to betray you in some way, or otherwise they're lying to you about something. And then you're probably going to break out of the structure of the puzzle system into some sort of outer thing. Like there's a particular like vibe there. A significant number of puzzle games inevitably have you kind of subverting the structure of the game or escaping the premise of the game in some way or seeing behind the curtain. And when that to the point where when it doesn't happen, you feel like they didn't finish the game almost because of how much that's like a given essentially. In fact, one of the questions here was about whether or not I thought Talos Principle 1 or 2 was better, and like I don't remember the exact puzzles moment to moment or the exact story moment to moment to be sure. I think 1 was much harder and more and demanded more of me than the second one, while second one was much more verbal. But what stood out to me is that the moment you start Talos Principle 2, it projects onto like a level screen what the total number of levels is going to be. And you can see the wider context of how many like secrets there are going to be in every level. And it's like, oh, okay. A whole part of Talos Principle 1 was kind of having your crazy aha moment of realizing, wait, I can get some of these puzzle elements, I can get them out of their levels. And like, I can use them in the hub to do fucked up things. Like, wait a minute, whoa. And like that was more of a discovery. But Talos Principle 2, by comparison, by just telling you exactly which challenges you're going to do in every level, and like, this is the one where you find this one sprite and this one glowy wisp thing, and you have to like chase it around the level. This is the one where you have to shoot lasers out of the chambers into this one thing that's outside of the chamber. Like, it's so telegraphed and pre-explained essentially that it feels more like a museum than anything, and that makes it more tedious to go through. In part because like just seeing the total roadmap ahead of you and the exact percentage you've done and haven't done so far in such concrete terms kind of just makes you feel like you're doing tasks. Like it makes you more aware of the fact of exactly how far you are and how much longer it's going to take, and you think more about that, and that just makes it like less exciting than just being in the moment now. Like I don't actually like being told how in such concrete terms exactly how many puzzles are left in a game until I'm already like done with it and trying to go back and complete it or something. Like having that roadmap constantly ahead of me while I'm playing the story still is like, it makes the game feel like more like a chore, even if it can be fun in its mechanics or whatever.
I get that.
Let's see here. How do you feel about the announcement that Clover Studio is back, or its IPs are back or whatever?
Who?
Clover Studio is the creator of God Hand, Okami, and Beautiful Joe. And I guess notably Okami is getting a sequel or remake, I guess is what was the news recently.
Yeah, Okami is getting a sequel. The thing is that like Clover isn't really back.
It's just like Neo Clover, right?
It's like Neo Clover, and it's Kamiya's new company, and it's a reference to the old Clover. But like, this is something that like people don't remember or don't really think about a lot. But like, the people who work at this studio are not the same people that worked at it before. Like, there are some obviously, recurrent people. But
it's just the thing about how like companies are individuals. That's a team of individuals. And when you come back 20 years later, it's like, okay, well, somebody has the IP. That's about it. Like, you have no idea if any of the magic's going to transfer over or anything, which like it could be, but only in like the, if it succeeds, it'll succeed the way that Silent Hill 2 remake did, which is that it's like a different team just like followed up on the vision and did well at it or didn't do well at it. Like,
I think some companies, it's not every company. It depends on it definitely isn't every company, but some companies are more than just the individuals. It's
the cultures and
it's the culture. Inside of the company, like to the point where I think some like people who are aware enough of what the culture is like inside of a certain company can recreate it with completely different people. But it depends on the game and it depends on the company.
Yeah, and I'm excited about Clovers. Like, it's cool that they're coming back, but also it's not like we're getting God Hand 2. It's like they're developing Okami 2. We'll see if the innovation that came about as a result of the Clover Studios original developed games is actually gonna come back, or if it is just they make Okami 2 and then are just another third-party developer,
They should make Okami Bayonetta merge. That's what they should do.
Okami Bayonetta?
Yeah. Furry Bayonetta.
Bayonetta 3 is like a multiverse story. Make it happen.
Oh yeah.
Jeez. I never had the urge to play Beautiful Joe, so I don't really know what it is that well. But all the games
really good.
All the games that they made got praised a lot back in the day. I think God Hand was like maybe the odd one out a little bit, but it looked kind of interesting.
God Hand's incredible. It was a really cool game.
I only finally got around to Okami a few years ago, and I didn't like it.
Wow,
you didn't? Oh yeah, I remember.
No, it's I found it deeply tedious.
It is very tedious.
Yes, like it very, very, very obviously is riffing on Zelda, and it does not do almost anything I like about Zelda correctly.
It's Zelda May Cry, kind of, in a lot of ways.
It's a very, very repetitive, extremely long game, and it's just like so fucking long. But also, I don't think I remember the story being all that engaging or the characters all that super engaging. They're like archetypes, and the painting gimmick is like this is fine. You draw a circle sometimes, you draw a line sometimes. Like it's just not that. Like most gesture-based add-ons, it's like this could have been a button or this could have been an ability, but you made me express it in a slightly different way. But it's not especially exciting to express it that way. It's like it's whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I found the boss fights by the end like actively egregious. Like I was so tired of them.
Oh, I'm seeing some gameplay of Beautiful Joe, and that's where Okami comes from. It's those blur sort of delay sort of cell shading. Yeah, this is like Okami, but for a different thing.
Yeah, VJ is really, really cool. Those are really fast games too. You can get through them really quickly. They're very, very interesting games.
Yeah, old school console games. They were small, short. Well, sometimes. Not in the case of Okami, apparently. Wait, they're not. Beautiful Joe is on the PS2, right?
No, this is like GameCube,
a Nintendo game. Yeah.
I mean, it might have gotten a PS2 port. I don't remember. I played VJ 1 and 2 on GameCube.
Mm-hmm. What a curious little game. It's the first time I see it, actually. And definitely never heard of God Hand.
God Hand's incredible. The game got panned by some critics because they didn't understand what it was, but that game is a truly fucking crazy video game.
It's like a genuinely weird control scheme, right? Like not just general like gameplay in general.
Yeah,
like it's like here, adapt this new thing the way that people had to like adapt to Demon Souls and stuff.
God Hand has tank controls, but it has tank controls because you basically lock onto enemies and then it's a 2D fighter while you're playing it with enemies. And the thing about it that's complicated is that it isn't like a Devil May Cry, even though it looks like a 3D action game. It is a game where you build your entire moveset like a game like Absolver. And you have to, like, you just use it to beat up the bad guys and go through levels. It's very cool. It's a very interesting game, but it's extremely high concept and very difficult to play if you aren't ready to play a fighting game.
I'm sorry I laughed because I just opened a video called God Hand Gameplay Walkthrough Full Game 4K 60 FPS No Commentary by Shiva. And I'm the timestamp for people who want to see, and it's 2 hours 35 minutes and 2 seconds. And I just clicked in the middle of the video to random gameplay, right? And I promise you, I just gave you the timestamp. It's somebody just whooping somebody's ass, like literally, like blah blah blah. Like
the spanking attack.
Spanking.
Yeah,
that's with the button mashing as well.
Very famous little thing from.
That was the first thing. I promise you.
That's very
like
funny.
Random click.
Very, very funny.
Oh boy, yeah. It's a weird. It looks PS2.
It is a PS2 game. Yep.
Let's see. Have you ever thought about making a video essay condensing the larger themes and symbolisms of the characters and plot points of Echo? Yes.
People ask this question all the time.
Yes, when I've talked about it all the time too, and it's like, yes, I've thought about it. People have literally had opinions about the fact that I've already thought about making a video. I've been asked not to in public before. Like, people, this is old news. Now that since a bunch of your friends have made visual novels and you made one, would you make one of your friends? I did. I'm pretty sure Jeremy and I are friends. So, ta-da! I did it. It's just I don't know. I don't know what you do with some of these questions. would you consider making I just like the idea like about the thing you already do? I'm like, yeah, maybe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Stuff takes work and time. Beastar season 3. Just want to hear your take on it.
Oh, have you watched it already?
I'm like 8 episodes in now, and it's weird. It's deeply weird.
I don't want to hear
It was always going to be weird, but it's weird.
I don't want to discourse this. I don't want to hear it.
You just don't want to hear my opinions about
no, not yours. I logged on to Blue Sky. I didn't even know Beastars season 3 was out. Yeah. And I was like, I'll watch it when it comes out. It seems interesting. You know, like I like Beastars. Why not? And like, I finished the Beastars manga and I didn't love the ending, but I was like, I'm going to be nice. I'm like excited I'm excited to watch the anime because I think for the most part, the end of the manga is really just not good for 10 volumes. And then I logged online and people are like, how dare they besmirch the manga by changing? And I was like, I can't take this anymore. I'm not going to read any of this. I don't want to hear anyone's takes on this. I am just going to watch Beastars in a vacuum and decide if I like it or not. And if I don't, then I will not think about it and not be upset about it. So that's my take. That's my take on Beastars season 3. Yeah. I don't want to hear people talk about it.
It's a good take.
I'm banned from talking about it, chat. Sorry. I'm not allowed to talk about it.
But what about the Beast merch?
I'm not allowed to talk about Beastars.
Yeah, Keith's not allowed to talk about Beastars. He'll make another video essay about it, and you guys can talk about it in the comment section there, and I won't moderate it. So you can say horrible things, and it'll get through the filter. The filter pissing me off. I did
consider the idea of doing a Beastars 3, a Beastars final season video that was just basically like, it's a coin flip whether it was going to be like, what the anime got wrong about Beastars or how the anime fixed Beastars because I genuinely didn't know which way it was going to go. I will say that just overall, it's a weird combination of like, oh, here's an adaptation of a scene where all the skeleton of it is there, but for some reason they seem to not understand the scene that they were recreating. And so they just talk about something else instead. And like, that's weird. That's always weird when a scene of an adaptation wears the skeleton of the source materials version of the scene, but then they just don't recreate the point of that scene. So you're like, why did they do the first half? Why isn't this just a new scene? It also like, this has always been true about Beastars, but it's still true here. You can see the unique limitations that seem to come in from it being a 3D modeled show, in that the workflow seems to be different, in that you create assets and then you try to reuse those assets, and that changes how you approach your character economy and locations and so on. So like a scene that takes place in 3 locations will suddenly take place in 1 location. Contrivances will happen to make certain characters reoccur, or certain extras keep happening instead of the characters or extras that showed up in the source material, and you'll very much notice the switching happening. In particular, there's a striped hyena that Legoshi fights in season 2 in the dark alley when he's like doing his like mentally, he's like doing his like Sherlock Holmes Game of Shadows, like, yes, this is how I'll discombobulate him. Like he's like doing his like mental thought process about how to fight a carnivore in season 2 while fighting that striped hyena. I think that striped hyena's character model is 3 different characters this season. Like he just keeps showing up as one of the side people that are unnamed characters in a scene, because he's just like, it's that guy again, the striped hyena. It's like, it's recognizable how much he shows up. And in particular, there's more lions this season than there were in the source material, because they modeled all the Shishigumi presumably. So they're like, we have this lion model, so let's just make a bunch of lion extras and replace other characters here and there with lions.
Because there's a predator overpopulation in the anime background, because they just have so many assets for them already, and you're just like where are all the prey animals? What happened?
I'm not a fucking, I don't have the secret perfect answer of what happened in the production behind the scenes, and I could just be wrong about my interpretations here, but it definitely does feel like certain locations and character models are getting reused to streamline the animation process because of the fact that they're 3D versus 2D, and like otherwise they might have just draw the character because you gotta draw somebody, and like that change happens. And there's definitely like akin to there's also like some Witcher shit going on where in the Witcher show they reorganized the whole thing to put Ciri and Yennefer in every episode, and there's some elements of that where you can see them coming up with excuses to put main characters, or what feel like the anime's main characters, back in the story in Beastars, because they're not in huge stretches of the manga. So like there's definitely like, what should we show Louis doing this episode, because Louis disappears for like 4 volumes of the manga at some point. And they don't want to do that, so he's just there every episode, but for like he's either reenacting scenes out of order, or he's just kind of doing like status update, like let's check in on Louis for a second. Yep, he's still doing that. Like kind of moments. It's very funny to look at. But yeah, it's been interesting to look at. There's been a few egregious moments of just, I don't get how they missed the mark on this scene that bad, and other moments where it's just like, I just would like to have seen the 2-page spread recreated instead of the less interesting visual they did instead, and stuff like that. There's a lot of like minor things I fixate on because I've done a lot of Beastars.
Yeah. There's just
like some of the most iconic visuals in my brain were blown right past and the way that, and what they did instead was they did the scene but without that, and it's like, okay, well, you were there already. Why not? There's
such a funny. This is quick. I'll make this very quick. There's right now what's happening in order to avoid catching up to the manga for One Piece, they're redoing an entire arc with newer animation. However, one of the things that they're trying to do is be more faithful to the manga. And you can tell that for how good the story is, it's not like drawn in a particular way that you should be matching panels 1-to-1. But you can feel the awkwardness of them not trying to put any sense of like, I don't want to add anything to this that isn't directly spoken in the manga, and you can feel weird like, it feels really janky
being
at
too
times.
True to the source material will get you in trouble.
Yes, exactly. And so there is just this nice balance you need to take when you're doing an adaptation that can get flubbed really quickly. And sometimes can just be very mediocre. So it's very fun to like that. It just sounds to me like typical adaptation woes. Unfortunately, it's just like
it's all over the place. Like when we heard like 2 years ago the final season, and there was no clarification of what that meant, I was left to assume it'd be a final 12-episode season because the last 2 seasons were 12 episodes, and that was just what a season was so far. And I'm like, oh, they're gonna cover the second half of the entire manga in one season. Good luck. That will take extensive rewrites. My gut reaction was that I would not like it 2 years ago because of the fact that, in my opinion, the main story of the second half of Beastars is weak, and a bunch of the side stuff and anthology stuff is very interesting to me and very engaging. And my brain immediately is like, well, the first thing you would cut is all this optional stuff to fix it on the plot, and because you don't have time for all that stuff because you're doing it as quickly as possible. But like then we find out that it was a double season that's coming out in 2 chunks, so it's basically just the 3rd and 4th season. So it's a whole second half of the show, as you would expect based on the length of the manga. Okay, sure, that's good news. But both good and bad, they want to like. There's huge glaring problems with the manga, obviously, in its structure and its story, and they're addressing that, but in mixed ways where it's like, one, yes, you can adapt and try to make the story better, but also like they're also at least for this first half, because particularly this chunk of Beastars kind of doesn't have a plot for a while. They've taken one minor element of this chunk of Beastars and turned it into the main story and blown it up to a huge thing. So they just kind of keep reinforcing that thing. But as a not massively inspired adaptation, the way they're doing it is mostly just by introducing this one conflict and then just reinforcing it over and over again throughout the whole season, just to remind you it's still happening and that's the problem that is going to be resolved at some point. So it's I find that the main plot that they've tried to make the driving force of the season repetitive and just like not particularly interesting. And the more episode focuses on it, the less interesting it is because they don't have anything to do until they actually get around to ending it. And so that's been my take at the moment. And then mostly it's just, otherwise I'm just hanging out and keeping score of like what did they skip, what did they change, what did they add, how motivated do I think those choices were, and what interests me about those and doesn't, and so on. They particularly like the manga is like a bunch of anthology wild shit where just stuff comes out of nowhere and then like it'll come up in a chapter, be resolved the next chapter, and never get mentioned again. So a lot of those things are being mentioned and set up like several episodes early and then reminded. So like a lot of things have a setup and a reminder and a payoff but it's doing it in a weird backwards way where they're just writing a new setup and writing in a reminder to functionally foreshadow what is then them just adapting the chapter from the manga, but later. It's interesting seeing somebody approach the problem of trying to adapt what is a very weird manga that kind of benefits from just being a bunch of isolated chapters you kind of just hang out and read, and is kind of cozy and messy, as opposed to a particular structured season of television. And there's both good and bad choices. But I don't know what my final opinion is going to be at this rate. Got like 4 episodes to go this season, and then I get to just wait, I guess, for however long that takes. Anyway, that's probably it for this episode of the podcast. We're 2 hours in. We got through like the majority of the questions in this big post that I did.
We did it.
We did it.
We did it.
Thank you for questions.
Yep.
Don't ask them again.
No, please.
Toaster's back. What? Watch all of Toaster stuff. Watch all of Andrew stuff. Watch all of Colonel stuff. Or else.
Yes.
Or else. We'll come to your house and... no, wait. We won't do that. FBI.
I will, but Colonel
FBI, open up.
I'm coming right now.
Oh. Andrew, that's TMI.
Yeah, jeez. Hands free.
I'm not telling you where I'm coming.
See you guys later.